Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. I'm really excited for today's episode because I'm talking with someone who specializes in burnout with new moms. And as you all know, my baby is 20 weeks old right now. We're just talking backstage about how I've been up since 3:30 this morning. And it's 12:30 now. Okay, but before I get into that, couple quick announcements. If you head to the links in the show notes, you will find a link to sponsor the podcast. You'll find free downloads, a free live masterclass that I do. You'll also find my courses, my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. And you will find the links for my lovely guest as well. And as always, this podcast is a part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. We are doing a lot in personal development. We have some amazing events with some incredible headliners coming up. So please check us out and stay tuned. Hi, I'm Chris. When I was younger, I went through trauma that caused me to feel broken and lost. But my life changed after I had a spiritual awakening. Since then, I've dedicated my life to studying and learning from masters all around the world that have helped me to create a life of fulfillment and abundance beyond my wildest dreams. Now I'm dedicated to sharing everything I've learned so that you don't have to suffer for decades like I did. I've seen people's lives completely transformed, and I share it all right here. All right, so with me today, I have Abbey Sangmeister. So drawing on over 13 years of experience being a coach and therapist, and fueled by her own remarkable journey of turning the impossible into reality, Abbey founded Evolving Whole. She works with ambitious parents and professionals to conquer burnout, to achieve the life of their dreams, and have fulfillment in all areas of life. Abbey is also a guiding light for women on unique journeys, whether it's IVF, the path to becoming a single mom by choice, or navigating the whirlwind of postpartum life. So, Abbey, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to dive in and see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, me too. And for totally selfish reasons as well, even though I know this is going to help so many listeners. So, I always start my show off the exact same way. And that is by asking my guests to tell me what their origin story is. So, how is it that you started working with single moms and women going through IVF and helping them with burnout?
So, I think the original piece I started as being a therapist for 13 years and getting lots of calls for people looking for therapy. And sometimes people were out of state for me, but I would still take the call because if that was their first point of reaching out, I didn't want them to get discouraged. Maybe I knew someone I could refer them to. And I was finding a lot of people, what they were describing was burnout and stress from just trying to do it all, and not taking time, like not taking time for themselves, not giving them permission to have that downtime. And then when I turned 40, I decided I always wanted to be a mom. And I had had many patients that had gone through IVF, and I myself then found myself going through IVF. And so it just felt like this natural transition of, providing coaching and therapy to women who were, trying to explore and figure out their journey to motherhood.
Amazing. And so, but by the way, I totally relate to your story. I also went through IVF. I tried for 7 years, almost 8 by the time I had my son at age 38, and I have another embryo on ice that I'll
Mhm.
probably be 40 when I have her, if it all works out, right? So, just to give everyone a baseline explanation, can you explain what burnout is and what causes burnout?
There's so many different components that can create burnout, and burnout can look like depression. It can look like, it's often fueled by a lot of stress, whether in your home life, in your relationships and friendships. Most of the time, I see it from people from work situations. Um, and then when they're not working, they're just on the go, filling up their schedule, sometimes with stuff that's fun. That was my own story. I thought like I was working and I created a schedule that allowed me to go to the gym, which is great, right? We hear so go to the gym. It's great for your mental health and your physical health. And I was doing things I love, which was paddle boarding. So I thought I was doing everything, but I never had like a moment to sit and breathe.
Mm.
And I wasn't giving myself permission to like take a day off from work, you know. And so I think so many people are just like on this roller coaster and this like hamster wheel of like I have to do it all and I have to be everything to everyone. And then they start to feel tired all the time, or brain fog's the big one. They're feeling anxious. They're not connecting with their partners. They're getting angry and frustrated and overwhelmed.
Yeah, totally. I mean, again, I relate to that so much. I'm a new mom. My baby is 20 weeks. I have childcare 2 days a week, and it's like I just want to take advantage of those days and work and grind. And it was like today, my husband was like, "You have to take a nap." And I'm like, I don't want to take a nap. I only have childcare 2 days a week. Like, I want to take advantage of that, right? But it's like it's hard to take care of your physical health that way. And when you were talking about burnout, it kind of reminded me of adrenal fatigue too.
Very much tied in there. So, what comes first? I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I think there's like the combination. And a lot of times, you know, I see this with people who are athletes that are working out really hard and they're trying to get their body composition or they're training for events, but they have a high stress job. And you start to see they're putting on weight or their performance isn't, as it used to. So they start pushing harder and harder. Um, and that just leads to more adrenal stress and then the burnout, where I've had clients who have physically had situations happen to them. Like I had one client who was so burned out in life that went on vacation and ended up sleepwalking and broke their ankle so badly. That's how they came to see me. And I was like, we finally unpacked like all that was going on and why did they sleepwalk? And why were they so anxious to return back to work after bed rest? And what was really going on in their life? And they were doing so much. And I hear you, like when I have childcare, few hours a week, I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to do work during that time. And sometimes my self care feels like going to a coffee shop and not working in my house and doing work at a coffee shop right now. Um, but I try and include like self care time with my daughter.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. So how do you balance it all? Because
Mhm.
I just thinking about myself, like I want to exercise every day. I'm one of those people who like if I don't move my body, like I just go crazy, right? I have to move
Mhm.
every day, even if it's just like a 20-minute walk around the block. So how do you balance it all? Like getting the work done, taking care of yourself physically like that, and taking care of a baby.
So balance is a tough word because it's not going to be completely balanced each day. But when you look at the bigger picture, are you finding balance? And thinking about like what's the season of life you're in? You may say like, okay, this is great. My movement and my exercise today is walks alone or walks with my child in the stroller. That doesn't mean that the next season or when you have more time, like you'll do other types of workouts. You might, for you, Chris, like you'd be like, I'm recording a bunch of podcasts right now. It's my season. Like the next few months, I'm recording some podcasts and then I'm not recording for a while. So I think sometimes we have to look at like what season we're in and how we can like balance within that season. I think giving ourselves permission to take a break. How many times do we sit down? I know this happened to me the other day where I was feeling tired and I was like, I have to write this content. I have this journalist that wants me to, complete this essay. I have a deadline. I was like, if I sit and stare at my computer right now, I'm going to sit and stare at my computer. Like it's not coming to me. Let me just put my toddler in the stroller and I'm going to go for a walk. And then the next day, because I thought I would work that night and I didn't, I was like, I just needed that break. It flowed. So I think sometimes giving ourselves permission to take a little bit of a break and then knowing that that energy and that clarity is going to come.
I really appreciate that of it's not balanced every day, but if you look at it as a whole, it really is
Mhm.
balanced. And I appreciate the seasons too, because you're right. Like I don't need to record a podcast every single day that there's childcare.
Mhm.
That's super smart. And I think sometimes it takes a third party to be like, well, you don't have to do all of these things, right?
Yeah. And I think
So
another
yeah,
piece too, sorry, I think
no,
another piece too is like thinking about like within your household, like what kinds of things can you let go of that might not be perfect? Like, okay, there might be some dishes in the sink. Or do I like, how can I get like other support? And one thing that I've told people is, like have like this groceries delivered for a season. If you have a busy season, something else you're working on, maybe you have some work deadlines, maybe like we're coming into summer and I know like here I live at the beach and other kids are super active, parents are active, they're driving their kids everywhere. Like maybe the summer you just have your groceries delivered. Doesn't mean it always has to be that way, but it's okay to get outside help too.
I really appreciate that because yeah, there's that part of me that's like, "Oh, I don't wanna spend the money to get the groceries delivered," but knowing that it's just temporary feels a lot
Mhm,
better, right?
mhm,
Um, and yeah, there's that inner perfection too, where my husband was just saying this. He's like, "Why don't you nap when the baby naps?" I'm like, "If I napped when the baby napped, the bottles would never get cleaned. Like, I wouldn't eat, right? Like,
mhm.
things have to happen. The laundry has to get done." So most of these women that you work with, is it burnout that they're experiencing because they're going back to work, or is it that like feeling of needing like perfection, or what is it that you're seeing the most?
I think the biggest piece is your identity is shifting. And like we know it, like it's going to. Like part of your brain, if you're not conscious about it, knows like I'm becoming a mom, but I'm still me. And I still maybe want my career, or maybe I'm not sure if I want my career. Maybe I thought I wanted to be a stay at home mom and I want to go back to work. Maybe I'm going back to work and I really want to be a stay at home mom. So I think that conversation can create some burnout too, if you're having that conversation in your head and not talking through it with people. Um, I think another piece, and something else I was thinking about today was we don't talk about how much support some of us have. And you see women on social media who are doing it all, right? They're posting pictures, they're doing the laundry, they're playing with their kids, they're working out, they're back to their pre-baby body, their career is booming. And you're like, wait, but they mentioned once that they had some childcare, but you don't really know what that looks like or how many hours. And now you might have less childcare or you might have less support or whatever it might be. And you're trying to keep up with what we see or what we hear other women doing. And we don't have to do it all. And that's the other piece. I think we we have to or we should, like the should is there. Like we should do it all. And for me, like in my, pre-mom stage, like I used to do everything, right? Why can't I still do all of that and take care of a kid? How hard could it be, right? Like I've done hard things before and balanced it all, you know?
Yeah, I like that. Like I always say, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, right? Like social
Mhm.
media, absolutely. Uh, and there is that pressure to kind of drop all the baby weight. And I mean, for me, I want to drop the baby weight because I'm like, I miss my clothes. There's like four
Mhm.
things in my closet that I can wear right now, and I don't want to go spend money on new clothes, right?
Mhm.
It's not even like a body image thing. I'm like, I look
Yeah.
great. I just can't wear everything, right?
Right, right.
Um, so yeah, you were talking about like feeling this pressure to have it all, but like, what about the person that wants it all? Right? Like, again, I'm like thinking about myself, like, I'm a high achiever. I am so passionate about the work I do. I just got offered this great opportunity that I'm taking. I'm like, yes, I'm going to go do this. I want to change the world. I want to go do my career and grow it. And like, also work out and take care of my body because that's important to me, and also make sure that I'm like really there for my baby. So like, what about the people who aren't feeling pressure? They just want that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I'm with you. I'm like, I wanna do all of it, but how do I do all of that, and can I bring my child with me everywhere that I go? And some opportunities you can. So I think, like, I come back to seasons. Like, sometimes there's opportunities that you just are like, "I can't pass this opportunity up," and know that, whatever that might be a few months, whatever, put your own boundaries to it if you can, and know that it's a short season, or if it's a longer season, like what else do you need? I think a lot of times we don't think about like what else do we need to support those dreams and how can we get those things. And there's lots of options out there. think outside of the box. Like, how else? Like, I was at a networking event. I said, I want to go. Can I bring my daughter? And people were like, yeah, sure. I think there's times where things are appropriate for that. Um, and again, coming back to really thinking of like, if I had a magic wand, right? And I could say, I need this to be able to have my high achieving dreams and nurture my child and nurture myself. What are some things that I need for support? And just put it out there to your partner or whoever your support system is, and other people too, and say like, how can I get this? Because sometimes like there is that ability, or someone else might say, well, here's another idea for you of how to do all of that.
I like that. It's like you can apply that to so many things in life, right? Like we get so tunnel vision, like it has to work this way, when really there's millions of ways it could work, right? We're just not seeing them or we're not exploring them. And I appreciate like talking to the people around you. So, what kind of things do you recommend for women to like help them to de-stress, to help fight burnout? Is it meditation? Is it like what kind of things?
So, my biggest thing is talking about like creating your ideal schedule. And there are going to be, I've worked with teachers, I've worked with nurses, I've worked with surgeons, people that create their own schedule, people in retail who they get their schedule like for the next week on Sunday. Still, like, take a look at your schedule and create that time and put an appointment in there for yourself, whatever that might mean. It might be a walk, it might be meditation, it might be reading a book, it might be going to the gym, it might be baking cookies, and that appointment you can't touch, unless like another friend wants to meet up for coffee and you're like, yes, that's going to like energize me, that's going to make me whole. No, but you're not going to fill that time with work. um it's important to have that time. And what works the best? Whatever works self-care for you. Like it might be meditation, it might be journaling. For me, I do a lot. Another thing is I think of a lot of things that I can do with my daughter that feels like self-care. So I love hiking and I love going to the beach. I've had to reframe what exactly that looks like with a toddler now. Um, and knowing like it might not go exactly how I want it to go. So to be prepared for that, maybe there's been times where I've gotten to a hike and she's napping in the car and I'm like, all right, we're just doing a car nap. And by the time she wakes up, we don't have time to hike, but at least I'm here looking at nature, you know? Um, so I think you can incorporate some self-care in doing stuff with your children. And I think it's good because it teaches them that too.
Hmm. Yeah, and I love that you tack that on at the end, because it's so important to take care of ourselves because we're modeling that for our children, right? Which
Mhm.
is why I like want my son to, even at 20 weeks old, see my husband and I working out every day, right? Like it's
Yeah.
important. Um awesome. I just realized there was a part of your story I wanted to hear so bad. It was about the Bermuda Triangle. And would
Mhm.
you mind just sharing that, like your own
Yeah.
burnout story? Because I think that might help
Yeah.
listeners just relate a little more.
I was paddleboarding competitively. Um, and I was signed up to do a fundraiser to paddle around Bermuda, circumnavigate it. And again, I was in amazing shape. I would work out with a trainer a few days a week. I was eating I was eating, perfectly, whatever perfectly looks like, right? Um, and I was working Monday through Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would be like off traveling to different places, meeting new people. I just really felt like I was living my best life. Um, and then I had like a minor, like stressful situation happen. And I was like, oh, this is fine. Like, I'm all right. And I started paddling this race in Bermuda, and it was beautiful. But it was also scary because I did not see anyone else for like most of the race. My phone died in the midst of the Bermuda Triangle. Uh, I didn't know my radio wasn't working until later in that race. And I sat down on my board because I was getting the chills. It was hot, and I was like, I have the chills. what is going on? And I was in the middle of a race and I sat down, and I am not, now that I'm a mom, I'm a crier, but I was not a crier. I sat down on my board and I started to cry. And I was like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm in the middle of the ocean here. Um, and all of these thoughts were running through my head of like situations and like what I was doing with my life. Like everything was just flooding in at one time. And my body had never felt so tired, but I was at like my best shape that I thought ever. Um, and so I finally took some, like a few moments, and I was able to like compose myself. And I actually was like, I'm just going to stop this race. And I like took my board to the beach. Um, and it's funny, this British family, I was like, I'll take your photo. Like I peered out. They're like, where did you come from? I'm like, the water over there. And then I realized they were like, this is so amazing. And I was like, I guess. And then something just was like, you have to finish this. But when you finish this, you need to really rethink what you're doing. And I did not push hard to finish the race. I did get some boat support for a little bit. And then I finished it. My body just did not want to recover from that race, like physically. And I was so drained. And I love the ocean and I love paddleboarding. It's like not for the competitive nature. The moment my brain was like, you don't want to paddleboard anymore. And I was like, that can't, no, I love this. And I didn't want to give up something that I love. So I knew I had to come home and like rethink what I was doing. Um, yeah. And so I really started reshaping every aspect of my life. I took time off from working out. Um, I was seeing a therapist. I was, diving into different areas in therapy then, and really, listened more to my body because I was ignoring all of the signs that I was burning out.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I should have like started by asking you about that. And that's terrifying, by the way, being in the middle of the ocean, not seeing anyone and just being that exhausted that your
Mhm.
body's like physically starting to give out on you. Um, and and I like that you said that all of these other things were flooding in. It wasn't even like, how am I going to get out of this situation? It was like, what am I doing with my life? Right.
Mhm.
Because it sounds like those were things that maybe were coming up that you hadn't really paid attention to. And then when your body was physically exhausted, it was like, you can't keep this away anymore. So we're just going to like just flood in right now. Um, so is that kind of how it works with most people? They like reach that point where it's just like
Yeah,
something's got to give.
we kind of ignore all those symptoms. It's, how many times do you hear people like never get sick and then they go on vacation and they like get a cold or they get the flu? It's
Mm.
because we can like ignore so much of what's going on in our body. Sometimes it's survival mode. Sometimes it's, that we're so determined to do things and to follow whatever path that we think we should be doing. Um, and sometimes we are doing, like, I thought I was doing all the right things. I was, seeing my therapist. I was working really hard. I was going to the gym. I was doing so much, but I was doing too much. I wasn't ever taking time to just stop and breathe. Um, and I think that happens so often for people is we don't feel like we can take a day here and there to just stop and breathe, take a moment to say, like, what am I really doing? And I say, like, it was like the best time of my life because I was having a lot of fun and meeting a lot of people, but I also wasn't where I knew I wanted to be at that point in my life. Like the path, like I was having fun, but that's not necessarily the path I wanted to be on for my career, um, and some other areas of my life. But I was having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that it wasn't that you were doing a bunch of stressful things. Because a lot of times when I think about burnout, I think about like maybe listeners do too, about someone who's just like grinding at their 9 to 5 and they're not happy and it's like not the path they want to be on
Mhm.
and not the job they're happy in. But you were happy, and I as you were talking, I was like, oh, I have a similar story. Like right before COVID happened, I was working at this yoga company. I was director of West Coast operations. I was literally working from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to sleep 7 days a week.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
loved what I was doing. And then when COVID happened and all of a sudden everything shut down, it was like this sigh of relief that I didn't even know I needed.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I really relate to that. And I'm such a believer, like we talk about spirituality a lot in this podcast. I'm such a believer in like if you're not on the path you're meant to be on, doing what you're supposed to be doing, like the universe will give you signs and give you signs, and then it gets louder and louder, and then it just like takes you by the shoulders and shakes you, right? And it
Mhm.
sounds like that's kind of burnout, right? Like,
Yeah.
or it can show up like that, and it sounds like it happens that way for you. So I think it's really interesting that you went from being a therapist to a coach. Can you tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about why you did that and
Mhm.
like what what benefits are there for being a coach versus a therapist?
Yeah. I still practice as a therapist in New Jersey,
Okay.
but I became a coach because I was hearing from people that I couldn't work with because I could only work with people if they had their feet in New Jersey. Um, and I was like, wait, some of these clients, they don't have a mental health diagnosis, or that's not what they are coming to see me for. Um, so I took a hard look at, do I want to become a coach? Like, what are the boundaries between the two? Can I do both? Um, and I started like slowly transitioning into coaching. I also felt like I wanted to reach more people, and not that I couldn't do that as a therapist, but I wanted to see more people in like doing work stops and courses and running some groups, because there's just an abundance of people who are feeling exhausted every day and not feeling content and not finding the joy in their day-to-day tasks. And I want people to have that. I want people to say, wait a minute, this path that I'm on, somehow I'm on it and that's not where I want to be. And so I'm so passionate. I want people to know that like you can break out of that box that you've put yourself in, get off that hamster wheel, and you can change it. And here's some strategies and tools to get you there, and some inspiration. And, it's like this fine line of, being a therapist and telling, how much do you tell of your story in sessions? And as a coach, you can tell a little bit more of your story. Um, and since I'm doing both, I put it out there, because I want to inspire people, but I'm not taking up my sessions with that. Um, yeah, I mean, really, my goal is just to inspire people and give them some strategies and tools so they don't end up to like being shook or being physically sick or whatever. Let's try and catch it before that, or like relationships breaking up, or um retiring and looking back and saying like I didn't live my life how I wanted to, and having lots of regrets. I don't want people to get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so important because if we ignore those signs, the universe is going to make that choice for us, or source,
Mhm.
or whatever you say. But we always have the capacity to make our own choices, right? And to
Mhm.
like really listen to our inner being and be like, is this what I want? Am I happy? Am I doing too much? And being able to pivot before, catastrophe strikes, right? And like
Mhm.
you have that dark night of the soul moment. And yeah, like I think about that all the time too. Like I don't want to be on my deathbed regretting anything, right? That's why like I'm taking the risks and I'm doing the things. And I think the people who listen to this podcast are in that same kind of mindset as well. So another kind of area of people that we haven't talked about yet is women going through IVF. So how do you help them specifically, or what are some things you're seeing that they're struggling with, and how are you helping?
I think one is making the decision, because it's such, as like a financial piece too, and the financial burnout of that. Um, there's lots of decisions of, what path do we go? Like, how many rounds do we do? Like, the what ifs that come up. Um, so I help like women kind of talk through that process, and their partners, if their partners want to join in. Um, and really like how to manage some of the stress and anxiety as you're going through it. like you're injecting yourself like twice a day or whatever your path is. And then, you're coming up to like retrieval and how you're feeling about that and transfer and, how many embryos, which embryo do you transfer? Like there's so many questions that you don't even think about until you're going through it. And who do you have as a supportive sounding board that is not um, directly involved, that you can really like talk through that in a different way? Um, and then give strategies and techniques like how to manage, the stress or the outcomes of that.
Well, you can't manage the outcomes, right? Like,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
part of the stress of it. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just financial, it's emotional, it's physical, it's
Mhm.
hormonal,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much.
The medication alone, what it does to your hormones, and then you're like trying, there's like what coping strategies can you use when your hormones are just telling you to be a different person in that moment? You're so flooded with all of these hormones and then the emotions on top of it. Um, yeah, it's it's nice to be able to support women through it and be able to be like their safe place to come and be able to say the things in their head that they don't necessarily always want to put out there to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking too, like the other thing is like it made me gain a ton of weight, right? Going through,
Hmm.
and I went through fertility treatments for years. It's not like
Yeah.
this is a quick thing for people,
No.
right? Especially people who are doing multiple rounds. So, what are some just a couple coping mechanisms that you've offered people that have really helped?
Hmm. So I think again, when you're going through IVF, I had this for me personally, I had this whole different vision of like what pregnancy would look like. And then when you go through IVF, you know, you're putting on weight because of the medication. You're putting on weight because can't be as athletic as you wanted. So like how can we still feel good about our bodies and move our bodies, so giving them permission to move in different ways that of course are cleared by their doctor. Um, I think a lot of it is mindset work. So what can they do daily to help with their mindset? One of my favorite things, I love music. And one of the things I've had clients do, which they've loved, is creating a playlist that is meaningful to them as they're going through the IVF process, of songs that are calming or relaxing or that are, inspiring and motivational. Um, and listening to that like as you're driving to your monitoring appointments, or maybe as you're doing your injection, or you're heading to retrieval, like something like that to really take you out of where you are at that moment, and that can be like your playlist for that time in your life too.
I'm laughing because I literally, and I just pulled it up on Spotify. So I have my like amp up playlist,
Mhm.
and it's Unstoppable by Sia,
Oh god, I
Fight
love
Song
that
by
song.
Rachel
Yep.
Platten, Superman by Goldfinger, which is super old school, Don't Give Up on Me. And it was like my husband and I had a ritual, right? Like while he was
Mhm.
prepping it, the first song would come on, like Unstoppable. And then like right when we were about to inject, like Fight Song would come on. And then
Yeah.
like while I was sitting there, like trying to massage it out, like Superman would come on. And I love that you said that because that like got me through those freaking shots. And by the way, it's more than
Yeah.
just twice a day for people who are listening. Like I think the most I had was like 5 or 6 a day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And it was
Yeah.
just, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a process. But
Mhm.
I love that you incorporated music. That's super
Yeah.
cool. And movement.
And I
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think creating like that ritual, like the timing of it, like where are you during that afternoon shot? I remember having to like in between clients try and like prep myself, like and be relaxed. And then I was like, what am I doing? Let me just I can move some clients around, give myself like a bigger window, you know, just so I could do it in a relaxed state instead of rushing. Plus, you're like measuring, and I was like, I don't want to screw this up. Like, this is, I don't want to mess this up. Um, I think like that creating that ritual piece is nice too, and helping people find like what feels good for them.
Yeah, I like that you're like, wait, I can just move clients around. I think that just ties back to everything we've been talking about, where it's like, it has to be this way. And then it's like, oh, wait, no, it doesn't. Right? I can like
Yeah.
soften a little bit and hold things a little lighter and move things around, especially
Mhm.
because like you need to relax your muscles when you're injecting, right? Like
Right.
if you're
Right.
tensing, oh, shit hurts.
Right. Right. And, like I had a client who was a teacher who was like, well, I'm just going to try and time it. I'm like, well, it doesn't necessarily work that way depending on like your clinic. I'm like, you can't necessarily time everything based on your school year because it might not work with like your cycle, with what the clinic cycle is. I was like, you can, giving people some options. I was like, look into like FMLA paperwork and say, like, I'll be in. Yes, I'm a teacher, but I won't be in until like 9, because I have to do monitoring. It's a season, hope maybe it's just one season or it's like a few weeks of, depending on what you're doing of monitoring, it's not forever. So take the FMLA. That's what it's there for, or if you have a 9 to 5 job, like I've worked with women like how to communicate because they don't often want to tell their employers what they're doing either, but how to communicate like, can I switch my schedule around to come in a little bit later or come in early and leave a little bit early, for this time frame. Um, and again, like how to word it to people and how to like when people ask you questions, like how to respond to that.
That's a whole other thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The questions. Yeah. And you just made me think about like rearranging things with employers. Like I'm like pumping after you give birth is like a whole other thing, right?
Mhm.
Like I just signed up to do these events, these big personal development events like 4 times a year, and I'm like, okay, how do I pump and feed my baby while I'm away when I'm like just producing enough and like can't create a stash yet. So
Mhm.
I mean, what's your advice for women with that too? Or like some women have to pump in the office and then do they put it in their company fridge? Like what kind of things do you tell people?
Yeah, I think one, checking in with yourself on your comfort level of like how and where you're going to pump. And I mean, I always heard like motherhood shakes up your modesty. And I'm like, I was always like super modest. Like, I'm like, I've pumped in Starbucks. Like, I
Have you
don't,
really?
I have like a portable one that I really like. And so I'll be like, like you can still see it, like kind of, and people would have to look, I try and wear something like maybe a little bulkier, but I'm like, I have to pump and feed my baby, Um, and like I've been pumping and driving in the car, like, uh, because you can't always time it. So it's communicating with people, I think, like, hey, this is the time that I need, and seeing what other arrangements. I think so much so often we might not be assertive in our needs. I know I am someone who likes to, make other people happy, and I haven't always asked for what I need. And now becoming a mom, I definitely am working on that muscle and saying like, hey, I can't do that meeting at 4 o'clock. I could do at 4:30 because I know I can pump during that time. Um, so yeah, put it out there. What do you need? Where do you put it? I just have always stored it in like a cooler bag, but I haven't been gone that long, a full day. Um, and I know like laws from state to state, they have to make accommodations too. And I know they make all types of like fancy pumping kits and I don't know. Because I haven't had to worry about that. I've had clients who have just put it in a cooler like next to their desk, like, and they have like, I don't know, like a Yeti or Arctic cooler, and they just put ice in it and keep it cold during the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I also just heard that you can fly and like TSA will let you through with
Mhm.
bottles, but I don't know about that if you're traveling without your baby there. You might need the baby there.
Yes. No, my friend was traveling a lot, and she'd pump on a plane. That I was like, what pump do you have? And I think she has like the one that like the bigger one. I can't think of what it's called. I'm like, how do you do that and not like expose yourself to everyone? She's like, I don't care if to feed my baby. Like I try and like cover up as much. But yes, like one time she was doing a lot of flying. One time they asked to like test the milk and she declined and they still let her through. She was like, I'm not opening up my breast milk and in like a Ziploc baggie for you to test it. And they were like, okay. And they just like let her through.
Without
I
her
just
baby
flew.
there?
I didn't have, I mean, I just flew and I had like baby food packets and snacks for my daughter. She was with me and they were fine. But yeah, I would
That's
just
really
check
good
the
to hear.
airline. But I
Yeah,
would just
that's
check
really
the
good.
airline. Hmm.
Yeah, and then, like, as you were talking about, just speaking up for yourself and putting it out there, like, we forget, like, so many other people are parents, right? Like, they've probably been through something similar, or they know what it's
Hmm.
like, or they've seen their wife go through it, right? So, we forget everyone else is a human being too, right? We're not just, like,
Hmm.
in this alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say like finding support, finding new supports too that understand where you're coming from has been really helpful to me too. Of like, who are those moms that get it? And who are those moms? And I try and do this where I'm like, you're doing a great job. And it's so a stranger, like a mom just like, you know, doing whatever. I saw this mom with a newborn and two younger kids walking to the beach and like carrying the big beach bag. And I was like, you got this. Like, do you need help? Like, she's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, all right, you got this. And, like that was helpful to me when I was traveling and a mom just came over and she's like, you're doing a great job. Like, I saw you, you're just doing a great job. And I was like, that means like so much to just hear those words. And I think like for listeners out there too, like, don't forget to tell the moms in your lives that they're doing a good job because I don't think we hear it enough.
There really is kind of like this club that you join, right? Once you become a mom, like people reach out with like on social media, like people in my network that I am not close friends with advice or with ideas or
Mhm.
whatever, or even just that, like you're rocking it. And yeah, you kind of do feel like initiated into something, right?
Mhm.
Um, so is there anything that we haven't touched on today that you feel is really important to get out in this episode?
I think dream of what you want motherhood, life, whatever to be. Take some time, get out in nature and do, which is always my favorite suggestion. Get out in nature, turn your phone off, tap in, listen to yourself. Like, what is it that you're really dreaming? And no matter how unconventional it seems, start looking at it and start taking some small steps to get there because it is achievable, it is doable.
I love that. That's such a great message to leave off with. So, if there are any new mothers out here, women going through IVF, or just women who want to connect with you, how can they find you? How do you work with people? What's your contact information? All that.
Yeah, so I run a couple courses and a couple group cohorts throughout the year. I also take one on one clients. So you could always reach me at evolvingwhole.com or on Instagram, evolvingwhole. I also run the Ambitious Mamas Collective, which is for self driven moms who are looking for support to nurture themselves and their careers, talk about wins and challenges. We kind of started off with a reflection or journal prompt, and then we go from there. We meet once a month on the third Thursday of the month. That's all on my website for details. Um, it's been a really nice group of women. Partial, like some women have gotten together and done some collaboration groups. Some women just figuring out different ways to support each other and talking through, strategies and wins. And again, that reflection period for someone who used to journal more often. I don't journal enough. So it's a great time for me to sit down and reflect on where I'm at.
It sounds wonderful, and it's everything you were talking about, right? Find your support system.
Mhm.
So, thank you so much, Abby. I really appreciated talking to you. Hopefully, through my own questions, other people can have answers to theirs as well. And if you're listening and there is a mom in your life that you think could really use this, please send it to them. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. And I will see you all next time. Have a beautiful rest of your day.